Senate will come to order. Yeah. Senators will be in their seats. Clerk will call the roll.
Alley, Argabright, Billinger, Blasey, Blue, Bowers, Bowser, Clays, Clifford, Corson, Dietrich, Erickson, Fagg, Falscadeau, Francisco, Gossage, Haley, Hill, Holscher, Klemp, Cluse, Masterson, Miller, Murphy, Owens, Peck, Peterson, Petty, Rose, Reichman, Schmidt, Schallenberger, Shane, Starnes, Sykes, Thomas, Thompson, Titus, Tyson, Warren.
Senators and guests, please rise and give prayerful attention to our guest chaplain, Doug Hinkle.
Let us pray. Father God, thank you for the weekend break, for the opportunity to spend time with friends and family at home, nurturing those essential relationships. Now, at the beginning of a new week, I pray that this body would work together in harmony, each using the gifts you have created them with. Cause them to embrace the challenges ahead and to appreciate the opportunity to meet them confidently, knowing that you will give them everything needed to accomplish your perfect will. Thank you for the calling you've placed on each senator here, each one a unique individual. There has never been or ever will be any, individually or collectively, exactly like the members of this body assembled here today. I ask that you would give them an appreciation for one another as bills are debated and differing perspectives are expressed, realizing that life may be shorter than we anticipate and relationships are important. Forbid, Lord, that we should allow the issues in this Senate to divide us, aware that to divide and conquer is the relentless strategy of the spiritual adversary. Despite our high-tech world and efficient procedures, people and healthy, honest, trusting relationships remain the essential ingredient of life. Lord, I pray that those kind of relationships would abound within this chamber. Cause us to seek the unity of the Spirit and the bond of peace and to love one another. I pray for the entire leadership of the Kansas Senate this afternoon, for President Masterson, Vice President Schallenberger, Majority Leader Blasey, Assistant Majority Leader Tyson, Majority Whip Cluse, for Minority Leader Sykes, Assistant Minority Leader Falscadeau, Minority Whip Holscher, Agenda Chair Francisco, and Caucus Chair Corson, as well as the chairs and ranking minorities of each committee, that they would be used to lead this chamber to accomplish all that you have for them. In Jesus' name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
On a point of personal privilege, Chair recognizes the Majority Leader from Sedgwick, Senator Blasey.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today we have two very special guests who are no stranger to the Kansas Senate. I'm sorry I can't see from here on this side of the dais, but if they would mind standing or at least waving, Vanita and Harlan Hunt. There they are, okay. These are two special guests who, for those who've been here around a while, might recognize. They're sitting in the VIP section currently. Vanita served as an enrolling clerk for the Kansas Senate for 20 sessions. She worked with Lori Cackler and Doris Fernicki. They are truly a great team. For over her 20 sessions, Vanita helped enroll and deliver hundreds of bills to the governor, and she always took pride in her work and even enjoyed proofing the budget bill, which if you've ever seen the budget bill, you know how many pages that is and how tedious all the details of that bill is. Harlan, her husband, served on our door staff for 16 sessions. He greeted countless visitors and was a friendly face in the Senate. He worked with and was a good friend to 3 Sergeant of Arms over the years. Both Harlan and Vanita loved working in the Senate and have a deep appreciation for our Kansas history and public service. But most importantly, they've raised great kids and are loving grandparents, and they care about their neighbors and volunteer throughout Jefferson and Shawnee County. I got to know Vanita and Harlan over my years in the Senate as once on staff and then as a senator. And when they left the Senate, you could feel that void. Because those two were just 2 great people, down-to-earth Kansans who not only love the state of Kansas, but truly love the institution that we all love, which is the Kansas Senate. And so we miss them, but we're very glad to honor them today. And so I ask the Kansas, give them a warm welcome back to their home, the Kansas Senate.
We're actually going to stand at ease for just a minute while we deliver the tributes. Point of personal privilege, Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. President. As I mentioned, I think it was last week or so, we here in the Senate, we wear many hats coming from the walks of life that we do, family and all. And I do have a special family member with me today on the Senate floor that I'd like to introduce. One of our 4 kids is here today. Our daughter, Charlotte, is here home, a sophomore in the Honors College, and she's here in the business school. She's here on spring break. So if we could give a quick, warm Senate welcome to Charlotte. Thanks very much, everyone. Wave your hand.
Welcome to the Kansas Senate. All right, we'll get some work. Please note references of bills on page 1 of the calendar. Messages from the House, clerk will read.
Announcing passage of HB 2781. The House accedes to the request of the Senate for a conference on House Sub for Senate Bill 229 and has appointed representatives Tarwater, Ward, and Clayton as conferees on the part of the House. The House accedes to the request of the Senate for a conference on Senate Bill 325 and has appointed representatives Francis, Essick, and Helgerson as conferees on the part of the House. The House accedes to the request of the Senate for a conference on Senate Bill 353 and has appointed representatives Francis, Essex, and Helgerson as conferees on the part of the House. The House accedes to the request of the Senate for the conference on Senate Bill 403 and has as conferees on the part of the House. The House accedes to the request of the Senate for a conference on Senate Bill 435 and has appointed Representatives Hoheisel, Steins, and Shu as conferees on part of the House. Announcing passage of HB 2788. HB 2781, an act concerning the State Historical Society. HB 2788, an act concerning the Department for Children and Families.
This constitutes introduction of those bills previously read. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader from Sedgwick, Senator Blasey.
Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 2468 was a conference committee report just turned in, and our Senate rules require at least a 30-minute notice to the Senate. And however, due to the delay in time getting it to the Senate, we just need to make sure we suspend the rule just to keep the process moving. So, Mr. President, I move the Senate suspend Joint Rule 3F to consider the following bill, House Bill 2468.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Conference committee reports. Chair recognizes the Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Erickson, on HB 2468.
Thank you, Mr. President. HB 2468 is a tax credit scholarship bill. It does a couple of things. It opts the state into the federal tax credit program, and it also lowers the aggregate limit on credits to the tax credit for low-income student scholarships from $20 million to $15 million. That was the change made in conference. With that, I'll stand for questions.
Are there questions for the Senator from Sedgwick? Seeing none.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate adopt the conference committee report on House Bill 2468.
You've heard the motion. We will hold for final action. We are now ready for final action. On this roll call, we will take the following conference committee report on House Bill 2468. Clerk will read the title.
House Bill 2468, an act concerning education.
Clerk will call the roll.
Ellie. Argabright. Bellinger. Blasey. Blue. Bowers. Bowser. Clays. Clifford. Corson. Dietrich. Erickson. Bag. Falscado. Francisco. Gossage. Haley. Hill. Holscher. Klemp. Luce. Masterson. Miller. Murphy. Owens. Heck. Peterson. Petty. Rose. Reichman. Schmidt. Schallenberger. Shane. Starnes. Sykes. Thomas. Thompson. Titus. Tyson. Warren.
Has every senator had an opportunity to vote? Does any senator wish to explain their vote or change their vote? Seeing none, clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. With 27 having voted in favor and 12 opposed, the passage of House Bill 2468, this measure having received the required constitutional majority, is hereby declared passed. Chair recognizes the Majority Leader from Sedgwick, Senator Blasey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the Senate resolve itself in the Committee of the Whole for consideration of bills on the calendar under the heading of General Orders.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Chair appoints the Senator from Potawatomi, Senator Titus, to preside over the Committee of the Whole.
The Senate, having resolved itself into the Committee of the Whole, will now consider those items listed on the calendar under the heading of General Orders. We'll now turn our attention to Senate Bill 513. The Chair recognizes the Senator from Harvey, Senator Owens, to explain the bill and adopt the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move adoption of the committee report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. You may proceed.
Thank you. Senate Bill 513, as amended, would direct the Kansas Department of Children and Families, in consultation with the newly established Kansas Office of Early Childhood, to administer the child care subsidy program and procure a modern child care subsidy management and payment system that would support direct-to-provider payments. This bill requires the DCF and KOEC to issue a request for information on January 1 of 2027, produce a comprehensive report with recommendations by June 30, 2027, and, subject to funding, issue a request for proposal for system development and implementation. These steps move Kansas towards stronger payment stability for child care providers, reduced administrative burden for families, and long-term sustainability of the subsidy system. And I will stand for questions.
Thank you. Are there questions for the Senator from Harvey? Seeing none, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the committee rises in report, SB 513 favorably for passage.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries. We'll now turn our attention to House Bill 2761. The chair recognizes the Senator from Lyon, Senator Argabright, to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. HB 2761, enacting the Speech Language Pathology Assistant Act to provide for the licensure of speech language pathology assistants. SPLAs may provide direct therapy as directed by the supervising SLP, the speech language pathologist. HB 2761 would establish the speech language pathology assistant licensure and establish the powers, duties, and functions of the Secretary for Aging and Disability Services in carrying out the act. The bill would provide for speech language pathology assistants licensure, define the scope of practice, specify required qualifications, and require SLPAs to practice under a supervising speech language pathologist. Again, the purpose of this bill is to provide for licensure of SLPAs. Proponent testimony included 13 representatives. Their proponents generally stated that the bill would benefit the state by helping to address provider shortages in underserved areas of the state and schools by creating a new group of licensed professionals who can administer services under the supervision of an SLP. Also from testimony, physical therapists have PTAs, occupational therapists have OTAs, states surrounding Kansas have already licensed SLPAs. It's time for Kansas to do the same. There were no opponents, no neutral. The House vote was 121-1. Mr. Chair, I'd stand for questions.
Thank you. Are there questions for the Senator from Lyon? Seeing none, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports HB 2761 favorable for passage.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carried. We'll now turn our attention to House Bill 2471. The chair recognizes the Senator from Lynn, Senator Tyson, to explain the bill and adopt the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would you mind if we pass this over?
Very well. We'll now turn our attention to House Bill 2615. The chair recognizes the senator from Montgomery, Senator Peck, to explain the bill and adopt the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move adoption of the committee report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2615 is a bill that allows for changing the name of a highway in Montgomery County. Highway 75, starting at the Oklahoma state line, going north, currently has a name that I thought I had it written down, and I'm not finding it here, and I apologize. Oh, it's currently the Purple Heart Combat Wounded Veterans Highway. So it will change the first approximately 2 miles through the city of Caney from the Purple Heart Combat Wounded Veterans Highway to the Brigadier General George H. Wark Memorial Highway. Just a little bit, I thought that it was interesting, Mr. Chairman, when I learned about who exactly Brigadier General Wark is. Brigadier General George Henderson Wark is considered Caney's favorite son. Caney is sort of hometown to me, even though my address is Havana. Caney is a metropolitan area just a few miles south of me, got about 1,800 people, so it's really large compared to the 95 people in Havana. But back to General Wark, he was born in 1878 near Liberty, Kansas. His family was one of the very first to locate in Montgomery County. In 1900, he graduated as a member of the first graduating class of Montgomery County High School in Independence. Of course, that school no longer exists because Independence has its own school, as do the other towns. 3 years later, in 1903, he completed a law degree at KU, which I found that interesting, Mr. Chairman, that in 3 years, he got a law degree. I don't know if that's what the chairman or any other person who has a law degree were able to get it in 3 years, but General Wark was. Shortly after graduation, he established a law practice in Caney. Brigadier General Wark joined the Kansas National Guard in 1909 and was soon commissioned as a first lieutenant. In 1916, he was elected, and I found this interesting and informative. I didn't even know this, Mr. Chairman. In 1916, he was elected to the Kansas State Senate, which that means, because of the fact, Mr. Chairman, that these desks have been on the floor since 1881. In 1917, when Mr. Wark became Senator Wark, he sat at one of these desks. I don't know which one it was. There's probably no way to find out, but I did find that interesting. In 1917, he organized Company D for World War I and became a captain of the 139th Infantry. Because of his military service, he was awarded the Silver Star, Presidential Citation, Victory Medal, and ribbon for his bravery in action, coolness in the face of extreme danger, ability to command and to conduct that inspired others. In 1919, he organized the Ernest Brown American Legion Post 138, which still exists in Caney today. In 1920, he was named as a member of the Court of Industrial Relations, which was a pet project of Governor Henry Allen. I don't think any of us served during Governor Allen's time as governor. I found this also interesting. This was authorized during a special legislative session. So special legislative sessions have been going on for a long time here in Kansas. And this was done in response to a coal miners' strike in some counties that are pretty rough. Crawford County and Cherokee County in southeast Kansas were pretty rough, apparently, counties because they had violence that escalated from the coal mines. And Governor dispatched 4 companies of the Kansas National Guard to restore order. In 1933, Brigadier General Wark organized the Kansas National Guard, later attaining the rank of Brigadier General. So he wasn't Brigadier General until after that. In 1941, many years of service in the military, he was released from service due to a physical disability, and he went back to practicing law until his death at the age of 96 in 1974. Many of us were alive at that time. At his burial, Brigadier General Wark received full military burial rites administered by the Kansas National Guard with an 11-gun salute with rifles followed by a salute from 3 Howitzer. I'm sorry, I don't even know what that word means or what it is, but it's big cannons that were brought in. Howitzer. So spelt that way. Anyway, I'll just keep moving on. But that is more information probably than anyone asked about Brigadier General Wark. But because of I found interesting history about the man and relating to us directly as a Kansas Senate, I thought I would go through all that information. But again, 2615 will allow a stretch of highway through the town of Caney, starting at the Oklahoma border north to the four-way stop, which I know you know where all that is. But with that, I'll be happy to stand for questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Peck. Are there any questions for the senator from Montgomery? Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Faust-Cadeau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I love history. This desk here on the Senate floor, since the establishment of the Kansas Senate, previous senators from the District 29 were all men. So I'm the first woman to sit in this seat that they held. And so the question for the senator from Montgomery is, if he would elaborate on the Purple Heart piece, highway in the legislation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciated the information and history. Thank you.
Senator from Montgomery, Senator Peck.
I apologize, Mr. Chairman. Was there a question asked? If there was, I would ask for it to be repeated.
Senator from Sedgwick, could you clarify?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If he would elaborate a little bit more on what portion of the highway deals with the Purple Heart part in the bill. Thank you.
Senator from Montgomery.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I'll be glad to. The highway currently from the Oklahoma border north on Highway 75 is designated as a Purple Heart Combat Wounded Veterans Highway. And so I do not know how far north that the highway naming actually goes. I will see if I can scan through the bill. I don't serve on the Transportation Committee, but I was honored to be asked to carry this bill because it is in my hometown. But the portion that would be renamed starts at the Oklahoma state line. And like I say, it runs through the city of Caney. It's about a 2-mile stretch. The remainder of the highway, Highway 75, will continue to be the Purple Heart Combat Wounded Veterans Memorial Highway.
Are there further questions for the senator from Montgomery? Seeing none, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move when the committee rise and report House Bill 2615 favorable for passage.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carried. We will temporarily pass over. We'll now turn our attention to House Bill 2622. The chair recognizes the senator from Barton, Senator Blue, to explain the bill and adopt the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There were committee amendments. I move the adoption of the committee report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 2622 was passed by the House 121 to 1 and was placed on the consent calendar. It's a bill that was brought to us by the Kansas Secretary of State. There was an issue that happened in Miami County dealing with a dispute arose from a number of signatures required on a protest petition seeking a special election regarding a school district lease purchase contract. The issue is that precincts and school districts do not have the same lines, and so if there was going to be a petition on it, they needed at least 5% of the folks who voted on the last Secretary of State's election. It just didn't seem to all work out. The Secretary of State could not come up with a formula that matched. They had a couple ideas. And so the change for this is just really simple. Instead of 5% of registered voters who voted in the last Secretary of State's election, it's 3% of all registered voters. And the Secretary of State said that changing it will not be substantive, and that approximately 3% of registered voters is approximately equivalent to 5% of voters participating in a statewide election. In committee, we also changed it so it's 3% across the board for all municipalities dealing if they want anything to do with, to do a petition. So with that, I'll stand for questions.
Are there questions for the senator from Barton? Seeing none, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that when the committee rises in a report, we pass out House Bill 2622 favorably for passage.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carried. We'll now turn our attention to House Bill 2533. The chair recognizes the senator from Johnson, Senator Gossage, to explain the bill and adopt the report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 2533 enacts the Occupational Therapy Licensure Compact. In the Senate Public Health and Welfare Committee, we had 4 such compacts this year. This is the first one that I'm bringing to the floor. The goal of these compacts, of course, are to improve public access to occupational therapy services and achieve a number of objectives that reduce administrative burden while increasing the availability of licensed occupational therapists. The compact would preserve the regulatory authority of the participating state to protect public health and safety. The bill was brought to us collectively by several of the chambers, as well as our veterans who are wanting to make sure that spouses would be able to go from state to state and be able to exercise if they're licensed in their home state to use that license in other states. And I will stand for questions.
Thank you, Senator. Could we adopt the committee report first?
Yes, I move we adopt the committee report, Mr. Chair.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Are there any questions for the senator from Johnson? Senator from Finney, Senator Clifford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Vice Chair of the Public Health and Compact Committee, I highly encourage the members to vote for this bill. It's an excellent bill, and we need to get it done. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Further questions for the senator from Johnson? Seeing none, Senator, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 32 states have adopted this and enacted this in their state. I move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports House Bill 2533 favorably for passage.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carried. We'll now turn our attention to Senate sub for House Bill 2099. The chair recognizes the senator from Sedgwick, Senator Clays, to explain the bill and adopt the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move we adopt the committee report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senate sub for HB 2099 authorizes the Secretary of Corrections to convey 57-acre parcel plus or minus of state-owned land in Leavenworth County to Leavenworth County by a quitclaim deed. The county will be paying all the conveyance costs. There is no cost to the state. The Attorney General will have to review and approve the deed before the conveyance takes effect. The land sits in the Town of Delaware subdivision in Section 20, Township 9 South, Range 23 East. The Department of Corrections has confirmed the parcel is surplus. There is no current or planned Department of Corrections operations or programs for the land. We're not setting any new precedent here. The legislature has authorized conveyances of surplus state property to local governments for economic development in the past. This follows that same well-established framework. I think an important piece of history, if you're wondering why we aren't just auctioning this off, is that back in the late 1800s, Leavenworth County, in fact, gave it to the state for free. So auctioning off something like that probably wouldn't be very gentlemanly or ladylike. Nonetheless, no one has testified against this bill. The Department of Corrections, the Leavenworth County, and the City of Lansing are all aligned. I'd ask for your yes vote.
Thank you. Are there questions for the senator from Sedgwick? Senator from Johnson, Senator Holscher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am awaiting a couple of amendments. Could I ask that we pass over for the time being and then come back to it?
All right, we will temporarily pass over if there is no additional discussion. Is there any additional discussion for the senator from Sedgwick? Seeing none, the senator will temporarily pass over this and return. Let's turn our attention now to Senate Bill 415. The chair recognizes the senator from Miami, Senator Shane, to explain the bill and adopt the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move we adopt the committee report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senate Bill 415 seeks to create remedy for a tragedy that happened in 2025 in my Senate district in the city of Gardner, where an apartment complex was condemned by local authorities, giving the residents of that apartment complex 48 hours to pack up their things and to try to find housing. It created housing instability for more than 700 people and was a true tragedy for our community. Senate Bill 415 seeks to narrowly apply the Kansas Consumer Protection Act over the Kansas Residential Landlord Tenant Act, such that when there is an intentional action or a failure to act by a landlord that results in a dwelling unit being deemed uninhabitable by a governmental agency responsible for enforcement of a building, housing, or fire code shall be subject to the remedies and enforcement provisions of the Kansas Consumer Protection Act. Simply put, once a local government takes an affirmative action to declare that a dwelling is uninhabitable, that would be typically through a condemnation, then the Kansas Consumer Protection Act could apply so long as the tenant in no way caused or materially contributed to the condition causing the dwelling unit to be deemed uninhabitable. The bill also defines failure to act. I do want to quote from proponent testimony from the Office of the Attorney General, just because I think it was such a great statement, where it said, for decades, the 1979 Kansas Supreme Court decision in Chelsea Plaza Homes Incorporated versus Moore has cast a shadow over tenant rights by holding that the Residential Landlord Tenant Act preempts the Kansas Consumer Protection Act. While subsequent legislative updates in 1983, 1985, and in 1991 systematically dismantled the logic of that ruling, no other legislative enactment has made it clear that Chelsea Plaza is overruled. Consequently, this old case law continues to cause hesitation among advocates and creates complexity in enforcement. Most importantly, Senate Bill 415 removes the need for legal gymnastics to prove jurisdiction in landlord-tenant disputes by explicitly codifying that landlords are liable, especially in situations where they have neglected a rental unit to such an extent that it is rendered uninhabitable. It's important to note that this clarity also ensures that landlords are held to the same standards of honesty and quality as any other business in Kansas. And there are several other industries that have their own statutory acts tied to their industries wherein the Kansas Consumer Protection Act still applies. This is truly a unique situation for the Residential Landlord Tenant Act. And with that, Mr. Chair, I will stand for questions.
Thank you. Are there questions for the senator from Miami? Senator from Johnson, Senator Rhodes.
Thank you, Chair. Was the main issue with the Aspen Place apartment that the tenants had to move out within 48 hours and they did not have money to move to another apartment?
Senator from Miami.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That is one of the issues. These tenants that were in this apartment complex were only given 48 hours to get out. They were not able to return to what was their home, and they had to sit and argue to try to get back just their security deposit and 1 month rent. Several of these tenants, the least amongst us, had gone weeks at a time without clean potable water. They had significant mold and mildew issues, rodent infestations, you name it, numerous code violations at this facility that had failed to be remedied. This housing complex had actually received multiple code violations and had consistently failed to remedy those. This bill would provide protection to those tenants who find it complicated to try to get an attorney to try to break their lease. There are laws that, so KSA 582559 talks about material noncompliance on the part of the landlord for their contract, and it speaks to reasonable time to cure issues that arise under the Kansas Residential Landlord Tenant Act. But not every tenant in Kansas has the ability, the wherewithal, or the funds to get an attorney to try to break their contract with their landlord. And many of them fear retaliation, retribution, and often will not act in those instances. So in addition to the 48 hours, it also didn't give them the opportunity to receive any damages that I think that they rightfully deserved. By putting this bill under the Kansas Consumer Protection Act, it does in effect create a liability cap for the landlord. So the maximum damages permissible under the Kansas Consumer Protection Act are $10,000 per occurrence, or $20,000 if the constituent that's affected is a veteran. So it actually provides a level of a cap, but that $10,000 could have made a lot of difference to the victims of Aspen Place.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Rose.
Thank you, Chair. So Senate Bill 415 does not do anything to put money in the pocket of the Aspen Place residents within 48 hours of their eviction so that they could use that money to go move into a new apartment. Is that correct?
Senator from Miami.
No, this would still, the case would still need to qualify as a Kansas Consumer Protection Act claim. So there would have had to have been an affirmative action by a governing entity. So that would have been a condemnation. And there would have had to have been demonstration of intentional action or failure to act by the landlord to even be able to either have a county attorney or the attorney general pick this up, or to try to put it into our court system. So of course that's going to take time to adjudicate.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Rose.
In reading the current Kansas Landlord Tenant Act, it says that if a repair issue of inhabitability, in the event that the breach occurs after the 14-day period provided here, and the tenant may deliver a written notice to the landlord specifically describing the breach and stating that the rental agreement shall terminate upon a periodic rent-paying date not less than 30 days after the receipt of such notice by the landlord. So under current state statute, can the tenant break the rental agreement in a situation similar to Aspen Place?
Senator from Miami.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The answer is yes, they do have that ability, but frequently it will take an attorney to intervene and to a very complicated process that landlords or that tenants many times are not equipped to try to handle on their own. It also does not address damages that might be appropriately owed to these tenants in the case of a material noncompliance. So if that material noncompliance is so severe, the landlord refuses to act, and that complex or that dwelling is condemned, then this act applies. And certainly I think most would agree that damages are due when it is that egregious and that severe.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Rose.
I think that what the unfortunate tenants of Aspen Place that we all care about, what they needed to really address their situation was they needed $1,000 or $2,000 to immediately be able to move into another apartment. And this legislation does not accomplish that, but it does open up landlords to additional expenses, potentially, and I have concern that that might drive up the cost of rent. So with all respect to the senator from Miami, I'll be voting no on this.
Chair recognizes Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the good senator from Miami for bringing forward this bill. We did hear it in committee, and we happened to work it in committee on a day. We wanted to talk about it and discuss it, and it happened to be a day that the good senator wasn't present, but some of the discussion was concerning the private cause of action. The original bill had a private cause of action that each tenant, so think about, in a complex of 30 dwelling units, 300 dwelling units, there are apartment complexes, large apartment complexes. In my district, we have a lot of landlords, a lot of tenants. And so the committee put on an amendment that there was a specific section of the bill that had its own private cause of action. A tenant could directly sue a landlord for some of the instances that you've been hearing about the bill. So we took that part out. What we didn't also remove by some slight oversight was a private cause of action in the Consumer Protection Act. One of the concerns that committee discussed was this would be opening up the Consumer Protection Act, combining it with the Landlord-Tenant Act. And as we've heard, historically, they've been separate, and we wanted to make sure that if we were going to combine them, that it was being done judiciously and in a reasonable manner, and being fair and balanced for both tenant and the landlord. I think we realized that if we're going to have tenants in Kansas, we need to have landlords as well. So I have a question for the good senator. With the private cause of action through the Kansas Consumer Protection Act, generally it's something that the Attorney General would bring on behalf of the consumer in the Consumer Protection Act. So with the bill now as amended, if it were to go forward, if we're talking about an apartment complex of 30 different dwelling units, would that landlord then be looking at potentially 30 different lawsuits and defending all of those at the same time?
Senator from Miami.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The answer is possibly. I do believe that there's a threshold where the local county attorney or the attorney general is likely to intervene. I think that if it is 30 dwellings, that might be large enough to compel attorney general action. However, it is possible if the attorney general did not act that each individual of the 30 dwellings could file under the act.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think all of us in this chamber are concerned about affordable opportunities for Kansans. And I'm just concerned that if a landlord, it's in litigation, right? So no one has been proved to be at fault one way or the other. It's going to have to go through the litigation process that is timely and expensive for both tenants and landlords. What is that going to do with our housing availability here in the state of Kansas? So I do have an amendment to discuss, and I'm not going to pass it out yet, but just want to talk about the idea for a minute that perhaps the arbiter we're opening up this new section of law to the Landlord-Tenant Act, and to provide some guardrails, if you will, see how this works, see how it's going to work together, to have the Attorney General or the county attorney or the district attorney determine whether this is going to be an action, just like some of the other areas of law, that you're going to have some other third party determine, is this something that we want to pursue? Is this something that fits into the bill / when it becomes law that we want to pursue? So just wanted to ask the carrier of the bill about that proposal.
Senator from Miami.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that it's a policy conversation that's certainly appropriate for the body. I know that I tend to lean towards believing that the private right of action be maintained because there are certain cases where there's a threshold that it might not get the Attorney General's attention or a county attorney's attention, or be able to warrant the investment of their time, like if it's a single dwelling or something along those lines. However, even if it is just the Attorney General, District Attorney, or County Attorney that can bring an act, it does give one layer of review before it would go into that adjudication process, and it would still be a step what I think is in the right direction.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Then I would like to discuss the amendment. I have turned it in, and it is number 4318.
All right, please hold while we pass those out. Senator, do you wish to explain further or have your amendment read?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to explain a little bit further. I think if we've got such a dire situation like this bill is intended for, where a dwelling unit has been condemned by a government agency, it's going to be something that our county attorneys, our district attorneys, or the Attorney General is going to step in and provide some assistance. So with that, Mr. Chair, I would stand for questions.
Are there questions on the amendment? Senator from Douglas, Senator Francisco.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I do know that there are ways under our Landlord-Tenant Act where a tenant can ask for an inspection of a property. Our city inspectors and code enforcement individuals can show up, and in that case may choose to say a property is uninhabitable. Does this change in any way the existing opportunities under the Kansas Landlord-Tenant Act?
Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not to my knowledge, no, it wouldn't.
Senator from Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Because in that case, the dwelling unit would be deemed uninhabitable by a government agency. And so I'm just wanting to make sure that the tenants have the existing opportunities under the current Landlord-Tenant Act to proceed. And that's something, if we don't have emergency final action, I'll be able to look into. Thank you.
You wish to respond, Senator from Johnson? Any further questions for the Senator from Johnson? Senator from Sedgwick, Senator Faust-Godot.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question for the Senator from Johnson, just clarification. So the entities that she mentioned, so clarification, is she saying that the DA's office, legal services, others would be able to help the tenant or the landlord? Clarify, please. Thank you.
Senator from Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So remember, we're dealing with two different acts in this bill. One is the Landlord-Tenant Act, and one is the Consumer Protection Act. So the bill and the amendment really address and the carrier can correct me if I'm mistaken, addresses how the Consumer Protection Act is going to impact landlord-tenant disputes, if you will. Prior to this bill, they've been completely separate. Landlord-tenants, you are a tenant if you have a contract. If you have a contract with your landlord, you have contractual remedies that wouldn't fall under the Kansas Consumer Protection Act, and you can bring them under the Landlord-Tenant Act. So the bill and then this amendment would allow that if we're going to have the Consumer Protection Act apply to landlord-tenant transactions, the amendment narrows the scope a little bit to make sure that it doesn't become too broad in how we're impacting the Landlord-Tenant Act, and it does it by this. To answer the question, it would allow the Attorney General, the Attorney General's designee, or a county or district attorney to bring the civil action.
Okay. Senator from Finney, Senator Clifford.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Being only a physician and not understanding the legalese here that you probably understand well, I would like to ask the senator from Johnson if this would obviate a class action by tenants of a large property. I may be way out of base here, but I'd like that question answered. Thank you.
Senator from Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Consumer Protection Act has very specific instances and how you get to a class action, so we're just looking into that, but the amendment would basically the Attorney General or the county or district attorney would be bringing the action on behalf of all the affected tenants.
Senator from Finney.
So I would, of course, yield to the revisor here and the senator from Johnson, give them time to figure this out. But again, this group of tenants would be at the mercy of a local district attorney or the attorney general who might rather be prosecuting, murder cases, big drug cases. And I'm wondering if we're keeping from them what we citizens call a class action, which I think they should have. But that's, again, part of this question, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Johnson has no response at this time. Perhaps bring it up after the revisor confers, unless you have anything you'd like to add this time.
No, Mr. Chair, I didn't think there was a question there.
Yeah. Further questions, Senator from Finney?
No, I look favorably upon this amendment, but I just want to make sure we're not striking a remedy that the citizens might have. Thank you.
Senator from Dickinson, Senator Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I stand in support of this amendment. I think all of us in this body agree the situation that brought about this bill is egregious and needs to be addressed. I think at the same time, and I thank the senator from Miami for doing that. At the same time, I'm very cautious about opening up a new litigation line in the tenant-landlord relations. I think this is a well-crafted amendment that has the opportunity to provide restitution without focusing on retribution. And a question I would have for the senator from Johnson is, does this amendment provide opportunity for the tenants to be reimbursed for their actual losses that they have, and what limit is there on it?
Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Consumer Protection Act limitation of $10,000 would still apply to this sort of action. So it'd be a $10,000 per tenant limit.
Senator from Dickinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In essence, this keeps the victims that have been victimized by an improper landlord from being victimized by legal bills at the same time. Is that correct?
Senator from Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, that is true. The Attorney General or the county or district attorney would not be receiving any payment from the tenants to litigate these types of claims.
Senator from Dickinson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Senator from Miami, Senator Shane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to add, obviously, this body heard the conversation prior to introduction of the amendment that I believe that there's good reason to keep the private cause of action, but as with all policy conversations, there are various considerations and trade-offs that we must consider, and I definitely appreciate those considerations that the senator from Johnson is bringing forward and would leave it to the will of the body.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Corson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to be opposing this amendment because I do think that we have already significantly narrowed this cause of action in a way that I think does put already pretty substantial guardrails on the ability of persons to make claims under this action. And I think that taking away completely the private right of action would limit it beyond, I think, what the bill is introduced intended to cover. So I would just direct the body, if you're looking at the bill, you'll see that on lines 12 and 13, it already says that in order for it to be a violation under this act, the dwelling unit has to be deemed uninhabitable by a government agency responsible for enforcement of a building, housing, or fire code. I mean, that is a very high bar. That is not something that government agencies do lightly. This is not, saying that my cold water was out or my hot water was out for a couple hours. This is not saying that there was some routine maintenance that wasn't done for a day. I mean, for a government agency to deem a dwelling unit uninhabitable is a very high bar. So I don't think that we have to worry as a body that passing this as is would open the floodgates of litigation. I think we took care of that with an amendment that was brought in committee. So I'm not going to support further restrictions on this, because at that point, we're basically leaving these tenants up to the will of the Attorney General, the county attorney, the district attorney. We don't have any sense of what their caseloads may be at a given moment. Keep in mind, in a lot of these rural counties, those county and district attorney offices are very leanly staffed. And so, again, we just don't know what their ability is going to be to vigorously prosecute these claims on behalf of residents who could be affected. So I think having an entity, Kansas Legal Services, stepped in and helped many of the tenants affected at the Aspen Place apartment in Gardner. I think having entities like that be able to make claims on behalf of individuals is appropriate. And so I would be standing in opposition to this amendment.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Sykes.
Thank you. I think the other senator from Johnson, Senator Corson, did a good job of talking about how this bill was already narrowly tailored. But I want to go back to the reason that we are actually dealing with this. Aspen Place had private water and sewer infrastructure that was originally installed in the 1950s and had not been maintained for years. Residents regularly experienced the water outages, dingy brown water coming from faucets, sewage backups into the units and onto the apartment grounds. And the final straw was when a fire truck fell through the street while responding to a 911 call, when it became clear that they could not provide emergency services or ensure the residents' safety. And then again, the tenants were still being charged market rates on their rents for these units, even though they were regularly faced with maintenance issues that I just described. The tenants did not get what they paid for or what their rent dollars, or the property owners were not maintaining the basic standard of being able to habit this. So then it was deemed uninhabitable by a government agency. So the guardrails are there, and I would oppose this amendment.
Are there further questions on the amendment? Chair recognizes the senator from Johnson, Senator Rose.
Thank you, Chair. Under this amendment, could a tenant still sue their landlord under the Kansas Landlord-Tenant Act?
Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, just like without this bill, and even when the egregious, awful things happened at Aspen Place, the tenants still have the remedies available to them under the Landlord-Tenant Act.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Rose.
Thank you. Could this amendment be added to the Landlord-Tenant Act without bringing the Consumer Protection Act into it?
Senator Johnson, or Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the bill is the Landlord-Tenant Act, and the bill is putting into the Landlord-Tenant Act, bringing in the Consumer Protection Act. Without the amendment, it would be the whole Consumer Protection Act, and the amendment would, yes, be in the Landlord-Tenant Act to narrow the bill.
So I support this amendment. The point I'm getting at is that I think the general concept could just be added to the Landlord-Tenant Act as far as district attorneys or the Attorney General being able to bring litigation. Thank you, Chair.
Are there additional questions on the amendment? Senator from Johnson, Senator Holscher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've been talking about affordability issues throughout this session, and I very much appreciate this bill. It's very narrowly tailored in terms of trying to take a step toward addressing the affordability crisis when it comes to housing. But as it's been pointed out, this amendment takes a step backwards. So I would just encourage the body to vote no on this amendment, but then vote for the underlying bill, because again, we have a housing crisis across the state. And I appreciate the fact that the senator took a step forward in addressing the issue in his area, but also helps us across the state. So again, no on the amendment, but yes on the underlying bill. Thank you.
Additional questions on the amendment? Seeing none, Senator from Johnson, Senator Warren, you may close. Or you may move your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I truly appreciate the bill, and it addresses some of our most egregious situations in rental housing units across the state. We heard some discussion, well, might one dwelling unit be too small of an item for the Attorney General to take a look at? Well, remember, under the Consumer Protection Act today, the Attorney General is charged with looking at all kinds of consumer-supplier relationships that are under $10,000 of damages. And we have had the Consumer Protection Act in place with the Attorney General prosecuting those types of claims, just like the Attorney General would do here. This adds that the Attorney General's designee could do some of these cases as well, and also your county or district attorney for those smaller situations. We often see unintended consequences out of legislation that's proposed in this body, and we don't know how opening up the Kansas Consumer Protection Act in the landlord-tenant relationship is going to impact rent. We don't know if landlords are going to have to increase their insurance because they now might be, without the amendment, they might be subject to many different lawsuits from many different tenants. So it's just to keep an eye on and guardrails on some of the unintended consequences. And if we see that this bill, if it's amended, isn't working, we can always come back and, hey, it's not addressing the remedies that we really need in place. So with that, Mr. Chair, I urge the body to support the amendment, and I move the amendment.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion appears to pass. Motion passes. We are back on the bill. Are there any additional questions for the senator from Miami? Seeing none, Senator, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this body just heard a really great conversation on the merits of Senate Bill 415 and the need for us to take action to provide greater protections for tenants in Kansas. It's important to note that although there are protections in the Residential Landlord-Tenant Act, that this bill, if enacted, would provide supplemental protections for our citizens. And those additive protections can certainly change the calculation that a negligent landlord might make when they're considering whether or not to fix issues affecting health and safety with the dwellings that they own. With that, I move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports Senate Bill 415 as amended favorably for passage.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries. We now return to House Bill 2471. The chair recognizes the senator from Lynn, Senator Tyson, to explain the bill and adopt the committee report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move we adopt the committee report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carried. You may proceed.
Thank you. House Bill 2471 would name a portion of I-35 between the intersection of Highway 59 and the intersection of Eisenhower Road for Deputy Sam Smith from Franklin County. It would shorten the Infantry Division memorial signs by a bit. With that, I'd stand for questions.
Are there questions for the senator from Lynn? Seeing none, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Deputy Sam Smith had the heart of a servant. Long before Sam Smith wore the badge of a Franklin County deputy, he wore the heart of a servant. He often talked about community service and did community service, not as a resume builder, but as who he was. It was a calling for Sam. At the age when most kids were focused on themselves, Sam was an active volunteer, so much so that he was the first person under 18 years to receive the You Make a Difference Award. November 19, 2001 was also designated Sam Smith Day in Ottawa for all of his community accomplishments. This was before he graduated high school. Sam took that passion for service to the Franklin County Sheriff's Office in March 2010 after graduating from Kansas Law Enforcement Training Center. He was a young man with a bright future. On July 23, 2010, at just 22 years old, Deputy Smith was doing exactly what he was called to do, responding to a call for help. While en route to a domestic disturbance, he lost his life in the line of duty. He died rushing toward somebody else's crisis. The passage of 2471, we will ensure that Sam's name remains a permanent part of the landscape that he loved. By designating part of I-35 the Deputy Sam Smith Memorial Highway, we are doing more than placing signs. We are reminding every driver who passes through Franklin County that freedom and safety are maintained by the brave. We are telling the world that Sam Smith's 22 years of life carried more weight and more purpose than many carry in decades. We are ensuring that his mother, Kathleen, and his brothers and sisters in blue know that Franklin County will never forget those who served. Sam lived the philosophy that one person can make a difference. These signs will stand as a testament to that truth, the spirit of volunteerism, the bravery of Deputy Sam Smith defined. I move that when the committee rises in report, it report House Bill 2471 favorably for passage.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries. We now return to Senate Sub for House Bill 2099. Are there questions for the senator from Sedgwick, Senator Clays? Senator from Johnson, Senator Holscher.
So the amendments apparently are not ready, but I will go ahead and ask questions.
You may proceed.
Yes, would the carrier of the bill please tell me what guarantees are in the bill in terms of, there's been a lot of discussion recently about CoreCivic, the private prison company, and there have been concerns about this transfer of land. Are there guarantees in the bill that would prohibit this transfer of land being used for private prisons?
Senator from Sedgwick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 6 days ago, the Leavenworth City Commission voted 4-0 to grant CoreCivic a special use permit. They had 17 conditions, a 3-year term, a community oversight board, and over $1 million in impact fees. 2 weeks before that, the Kansas Court of Appeals unanimously affirmed that Leavenworth had the legal authority to require that permit. The system works. The local government exercises home rule authority. The courts backed it, and the city reached a decision. That's all I have to say about that issue.
Senator from Johnson, Senator Holscher.
Okay, so can this land in particular be used for private prisons?
Senator from Sedgwick.
That is a local control issue. I'm not here to change the rules retroactively after the after the game is over. And if this senator's amendment is about core civic, it sounds already like that is the case. I feel like that's an attack on local control. It's an attack on the courts. And frankly, it's not going to be germane. I will question their germaneness.
Senator from Johnson.
I guess the question is then, is there a cost or in this transfer of land, or I guess in terms of, is there a deal here attached to this transferring of land?
Senator from Sedgwick.
I don't understand the question. Is there a deal attached?
Senator from Johnson, do you wish to clarify?
Yeah, is there a monetary attachment to the transferring of land? Is it just being transferred free of charge? Is there a monetary commitment to it, or something else attached to the transferring of the land?
Senator from Sedgwick.
So in the late 1800s, this land was owned by Leavenworth County, and they kindly offered it to the state free of charge, evidently to put up the prison. And they have not been using this particular portion of that land. So it is being, according to this bill, if this passes, which I'm sure it will, is being passed back to them. I mentioned earlier that, you know, the question, an obvious question that people might have is why not auction it off? And as I said before, when someone gives you something for free and then you quit using it, to charge them to get it back doesn't sound very gentlemanly or very ladylike. So in this particular case, it makes sense for us to simply transfer it back to the good people of Leavenworth County.
Senator from Johnson.
Is there anything in this bill that would prohibit this land from being used? There was debate and talk the other day about data centers. Is there anything in the bill that would prohibit the land from being used in that regard? Because there's been a lot of talk about different areas across the state being used for those purposes.
Senator from Sedgwick.
This bill does not preempt any local zoning for one favored land use. We've established the principle in Topeka that you know, the idea that we know better than the locals can be problematic. Kansas is already competitive for data centers, and if the project's good, I'm sure cities will approve it if they want the tax base, and if it's a problem for them, then they won't.
Senator from Johnson.
I do appreciate that answer, yet it does seem to contradict. I mean, was it just last week or the week before we passed a bill in terms of cell phones preempting local control in that regard? So it does seem that we take time, we pick and choose times when we say local control is important and paramount in certain situations, but other times it's not. So if I understood correctly, this does not prohibit this land from being used in the cases that I asked about. So I do appreciate that clarification. Thank you.
Are there further questions from the senator from Sedgwick?
If I may respond, I want to say this, that when it comes to education, we fund education at the state level, and so we do have a hand in making sure that that education is done according to the will of the people. So there is no hypocrisy here. There is no money being transferred here. So the idea that those are comparable is silly. This is that is apples to triangles. That's all I have to say about that.
Further questions for the senator from Sedgwick? Seeing none, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that when the committee rises to report, it reports Senate Sub HB 2099 favorably for passage.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries. The chair recognizes the majority leader from Sedgwick, Senator Blasey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the committee rise and report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries.
Clerk will read the committee report.
On motion of Senator Blasey, the Senate resolved itself into the Committee of the Whole for consideration of bills on the calendar under the heading of General Orders with Senator Titus in the chair. Recommended, Senate Bill 513, House Bill 2471, House Bill 2615, House Bill 2622, House Bill 2533 be amended by the adoption of the committee reports and the bills be passed as amended. Senate Bill 415 be amended by the adoption of the committee report, be further amended on motion of Senator Warren, and the bill be passed as further amended. House Bill 2099 be amended by the adoption of the committee report recommending a substitute bill, and the substitute bill be passed. House Bill 2761 be passed.
Chair recognizes the Senator from Pottawatomie for adoption of the report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move we adopt the committee report.
For the motion, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Report's adopted. We'll now refer back to the order of business. Introduction of bills and concurrent resolutions. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 536 by Committee on Assessment and Taxation, an act concerning income taxation.
This constitutes introduction of Senate Bill 536. Reports of standing committees. Clerk will read.
Mr. President, your Committee on Federal and State Affairs begs leave to submit the following report. The following appointment was referred to and considered by the committee, and your committee recommends that the Senate approve and consent to such appointment by the Governor, Brigadier General, Kansas National Guard, Rodney Seba. Mr. President, your Committee on Federal and State Affairs begs leave to submit the following report. The following appointment was referred to and considered by the committee, and your committee recommends that the Senate approve and consent to such appointment by the Governor, Brigadier General, Kansas National Guard, Joseph Deeds. Mr. President, your Committee on Federal and State Affairs begs leave to submit the following report. The following appointment was referred to and considered by the committee, and your committee recommends that the Senate approve and consent to such appointment by the Governor, Adjutant General, Kansas National Guard, Paul Schneider. Mr. President, the Committee on Education recommends House Bill 2487 be passed. Mr. President, the Committee on Judiciary recommends House Bill 2552 be passed, and because the committee is of the opinion that the bill is of a non-controversial nature, be placed on the consent calendar. Mr. President, the Committee on Federal and State Affairs recommends HB 2729 be passed. Mr. President, the Committee on Federal and State Affairs recommends HB 2727 be passed. Mr. President, the Select Committee on Veterans Affairs recommends House Bill 2626 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. Mr. President, the Select Committee on Veterans Affairs recommends House Bill 2214 be passed. Mr. President, the Committee on Judiciary recommends House Bill 2601 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. Mr. President, the Select Committee on Veterans Affairs recommends House Bill 2627 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. Mr. President, the Committee on Judiciary recommends House Bill 2593 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. Mr. President, the Committee on Education recommends Senate Bill 496 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. Mr. President, the Committee on Education recommends House Bill 2374 be passed. Mr. President, the Committee on Judiciary recommends House Bill 2444 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. Mr. President, the Committee on Judiciary recommends House Bill 2639 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. Mr. President, the Committee on Government Efficiency recommends Senate Bill 376 be passed. Mr. President, the Committee on Government Efficiency recommends House Bill 2574 be passed. Mr. President, the Committee on Public Health and Welfare recommends House Bill 2524 be passed. Mr. President, the Committee on Public Health and Welfare recommends House Bill 2520 be passed. Mr. President, the Committee on Public Health and Welfare recommends House Bill 2536 be passed. Mr. President, the Committee on Local Government, Transparency, and Ethics recommends House Bill 2571 be amended by substituting with a new bill to be designated as Senate substitute for House Bill number 2571, and the substitute bill be passed. Mr. President, the Committee on Transportation recommends House Bill 2522 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. Mr. President, the Committee on Commerce recommends Senate Bill 393 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. Mr. President, the Committee on Assessment and Taxation recommends House Bill 2470 be passed. Mr. President, the Committee on Commerce recommends House Bill 2343 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. Mr. President, the Committee on Assessment and Taxation recommends House Bill 2464 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. Mr. President, the Committee on Agriculture and Natural Resources recommends House Bill 2111 be amended by substituting with a new bill to be designated as Senate substitute for House Bill number 2111, and the substitute bill be passed. Mr. President, the Committee on Assessment and Taxation recommends Senate Bill 521 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. Mr. President, the Committee on Judiciary recommends substitute for House Bill 2595 be amended and the bill be passed as amended. Mr. President, the Committee on Commerce recommends House Bill 2466 be amended and the bill be passed as amended.
Sounds like the committees gave us some work to do. All right. Before recessing, are there announcements? Seeing none, Chair recognizes the majority leader from Sedgwick, Senator Blasey.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tomorrow, the Senate will be on general orders, and the following bills will be above the line. House Bill 2763, 2647, 2412, 2393, 2702, 2323, 2579, and 2737. Senate Republicans will caucus in our usual room immediately upon adjournment, and I yield to the Senator from Douglas.
Senator from Douglas.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Senate Democrats will caucus immediately upon adjournment in room 287 North. I yield back to the Senator from Sedgwick.
Senator from Sedgwick.
Mr. President, I move the Senate adjourn until sound of the gavel.
Recess.
Sorry, recess until sound of the gavel.
You heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. And motion carries. We're in recess. We're just waiting to read bills in. There's no other action going to happen. Thank you. We're in recess.
Senate will come to order. Reports of standing committees, the clerk will read.
Mr. President, the Committee on Public Health and Welfare recommends House Bill 2509 be amended and the bill be passed as amended.
Chair recognizes, under the order of business announcements, Chair recognizes Majority Leader Sedgwick, Senator Blasey.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I move the Senate adjourn until 2:30 p.m. on Tuesday, March 17, 2026.
For the motion, all in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries. We are adjourned.